Most people spend their lives waiting for motivation, believing that one day they will wake up feeling confident, inspired, and ready to take on their goals. But motivation is not something that arrives first. It is something that shows up after you begin. Action is the spark, not the reward. When you sit still and wait for the perfect emotional state, you train yourself to depend on feelings rather than decisions. And feelings are unreliable. They change with the weather, with sleep, with mood, and with circumstance. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision, and decisions can be made at any moment. Action creates clarity. When you start moving, even imperfectly, confusion begins to fade. You learn what works and what doesn't, not by thinking, but by doing. Most fear is not fear of failure, but fear of the unknown. And the fastest way to eliminate the unknown is to step into it. Once you take the first step, you realize that the monster in your mind was often just a shadow. Momentum replaces hesitation, and confidence begins to grow naturally. Waiting for motivation is dangerous because it reverses the natural order of growth. Confidence is not a prerequisite to action. It is the result of action. No one feels confident before their first attempt. Confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself, especially when it's uncomfortable. Every small action taken becomes evidence that you are capable, reliable, and progressing. That evidence compounds over time and transforms how you see yourself. Action also changes how the mind works. The mind is a servant, not a master. When you tell it to move and follow through, it learns obedience. When you allow it to negotiate, delay, and make excuses, it learns control. Successful people are not those who have eliminated fear or doubt. They are those who act while fear and doubt are still present. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move anyway. Even small actions have power. Minutes of focused effort can break hours of mental resistance. The hardest part of any task is not the work itself, but the beginning. Once you start, energy follows. The body responds to movement. The mind aligns with direction. And what once felt heavy becomes manageable. When you act first, you send a powerful message to yourself that your goals matter more than your excuses. Over time, this builds self-respect, and self-respect fuels consistency. Motivation then becomes a byproduct, not a requirement. You no longer ask, do I feel like doing this? You ask, is this what needs to be done? That shift alone can change the entire trajectory of a life. In the end, action is the great transformer. It turns dreams into plans, plans into habits, and habits into results. Start where you are. Use what you have. Take the step. Motivation will meet you on the way. Action becomes inevitable when your reasons are strong and unavoidable. Every human being lives by reasons, whether they realize it or not. When the reasons are weak, excuses sound convincing. When the reasons are clear and emotionally charged, excuses lose their power. You will always find a way to act when you know exactly why you must act. That is why clarity of purpose is not a luxury. It is a necessity for progress. Many people struggle to take action not because they are lazy, but because they are unclear. Vague goals create weak energy. Saying you want a better life or more success is not enough. The mind does not respond to general wishes. It responds to specific reasons. When you define exactly what you want and why it matters, action becomes more natural. The stronger the emotional connection to the outcome, the less effort it takes to move toward it. Excuses are rarely logical. They are emotional shields. They protect us from discomfort, fear, and responsibility. But excuses thrive only when the future feels optional. When you clearly see the cost of inaction, excuses begin to collapse. Imagine the weight of staying the same for 5 years, 10 years, or a lifetime. That image alone can be more motivating than any external pressure. Pain is unavoidable in life, but we always get to choose which pain we pay. The pain of discipline now, or the pain of regret later. Strong reasons also create resilience. When obstacles appear, and they always do, people with weak reasons quit, while people with strong reasons adapt. They don't ask, is this hard? They ask, is this worth it? And when the answer is yes, they keep moving. Purpose turns setbacks into lessons and delays into preparation. It gives meaning to struggle and direction to effort. One of the most powerful exercises you can do is to repeatedly remind yourself of your reasons. Write them down. Read them daily. Speak them when your energy is low. When the mind forgets why it started, the body loses the will to continue. But when your reasons stay fresh, discipline becomes easier and consistency becomes possible. Strong reasons also elevate your standards. You stop tolerating behaviors that move you away from your goals. You become more selective with your time, your habits, and your environment. You begin to say no to what is easy so you can say yes to what matters. That is not sacrifice, that is alignment. In the end, action is not forced by willpower alone. Willpower fades, but purpose endures. When your reasons are strong, action becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural response. You don't need to fight yourself every day. You simply need to remind yourself what's at stake. When the reason is big enough, the action will follow. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. They look at the size of their goals and feel overwhelmed, not because the goal is impossible, but because they believe it requires massive action all at once. In reality, lasting success is built quietly through small disciplines practiced consistently. Big achievements are not the result of heroic effort on rare occasions, but simple actions repeated daily. Small actions remove pressure. When a task feels too large, the mind resists, but when you break it down into something manageable, resistance weakens. Reading one page feels easy. Writing one paragraph feels doable. Making one phone call feels possible. And once you complete that small action, you experience progress. Progress, even in tiny amounts, is motivating. It tells the brain that movement is happening, and movement creates momentum. Consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can get excited for a short burst of effort, but excitement fades. Discipline, when practiced in small doses, lasts. A little progress every day compounds over time, just like interest in a bank account. At first, the results are barely noticeable, but with patience, those small gains multiply, and one day you look back and realize how far you've come. That is the power of consistency. Small disciplines also build trust with yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, no matter how minor, you strengthen self-respect. Confidence grows not from grand promises, but from kept promises. When you honor small commitments, you train your mind to believe in your ability to follow through. That belief becomes the foundation for taking on bigger challenges. Another advantage of small actions is that they are sustainable. Extreme routines and unrealistic standards often lead to burnout. People push hard for a few days, then quit completely. Small daily disciplines fit into real life. They allow room for mistakes without destroying momentum. Missing one day doesn't mean failure. It simply means you return the next day and continue. Small disciplines also sharpen focus. Instead of being distracted by everything you need to do, you concentrate on the next right action. This reduces anxiety and increases clarity. Success is not about doing everything at once. It's about doing the right things in sequence. Over time, these small actions begin to shape identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. What began as a simple habit becomes a lifestyle. The compound effect takes over, and effort turns into results almost automatically. In the end, greatness is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary days, through ordinary actions done with commitment. If you want extraordinary results, Focus on doing small things extraordinarily well, day after day. The moment you accept full responsibility for your life is the moment you regain your power. As long as you blame circumstances, other people, or the past, you remain stuck. Blame feels comforting because it removes pressure, but it also removes control. Responsibility, on the other hand, may feel heavy at first, but it is the doorway to freedom. When you accept that your choices shape your future, you also accept that you have the ability to change it. Personal responsibility shifts your focus from what is out of your control to what is within it. You may not control the economy, your upbringing, or other people's decisions, but you always control your response. Progress begins the day you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What can I do with what I have?" That single shift transforms frustration into forward motion. Discipline grows naturally from responsibility. When you know that your results are tied to your daily actions, excuses lose their appeal. You stop waiting for permission, approval, or perfect conditions. You understand that no one is coming to rescue you, and instead of feeling abandoned, you feel empowered. Your life becomes your project, and every day becomes an opportunity to improve it. Taking responsibility also sharpens decision-making. You begin to think long-term instead of reacting emotionally in the moment. You weigh consequences. You become more intentional with your time, your habits, and your energy. This level of awareness separates those who drift through life from those who design it. Freedom is not the absence of structure, it is the presence of self-control. When responsibility becomes a habit, confidence increases. You trust yourself because you know you will do what needs to be done, regardless of mood or circumstance. This kind of confidence is quiet and steady. It doesn't depend on praise or validation. It comes from knowing that you are accountable to yourself first. Personal responsibility also builds resilience. When setbacks occur, you don't collapse or complain endlessly. You assess, adjust, and move forward. You treat failure as feedback, not as a verdict. This mindset turns obstacles into teachers and delays into preparation. In the end, responsibility is not about carrying guilt or pressure. It is about owning your potential. The moment you stop giving your power away to excuses is the moment you start living intentionally. When you take responsibility for your actions, your habits, and your decisions, you step into freedom. And with that freedom comes the ability to shape a life of purpose, progress, and fulfillment. Taking action ultimately comes down to making a clear, firm decision and refusing to delay it. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they keep postponing decisions. They live in a constant state of preparation, waiting for the right moment, the right mood, or the right conditions. But life does not reward intention, it rewards execution. The moment you decide, truly decide, something shifts inside you. Energy follows commitment. Decisions create direction. When you decide, you stop drifting and start moving with purpose. Indecision drains energy, creates anxiety, and keeps you stuck in the same place. A weak decision leaves room for excuses. A strong decision closes the door on retreat. Once the decision is made, action becomes simpler because the debate is over. You no longer ask yourself whether you should act. You focus only on how to act. Action taken today is more powerful than a perfect plan for tomorrow. Waiting to get everything right often becomes a sophisticated form of procrastination. Progress favors those who start before they feel ready. Mistakes made in motion are more valuable than flawless ideas left untouched. Every action teaches you something. Every step forward sharpens judgment and builds experience. You cannot learn how to win by standing on the sidelines. Urgency is another key element of action. When something feels distant, it feels optional. When it feels immediate, it becomes important. That is why successful people operate with a sense of now. They understand that time is the one resource that never replenishes. Every day wasted is a day that cannot be recovered. Acting today is a form of respect for your future self. There is also power in deciding who you are no longer willing to be. At some point, you must get tired of your own delays, excuses, and half-efforts. That moment of honest frustration can become a turning point. Not anger at life, but disappointment in wasted potential. When you reach that point, action stops feeling forced and starts feeling necessary. Action also simplifies life. When you move, problems either resolve themselves or reveal their solutions. Complexity thrives in hesitation, but clarity thrives in motion. Doing something, even imperfectly, is often the fastest way forward. In the end, action is not about intensity. It is about commitment. Decide that your goals matter. Decide that today counts. Decide that you will move, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's slow, because the habit of taking action does more than change results. It changes who you become. And once you become someone who acts, your future can no longer remain the same. When all of this is brought together, one truth becomes clear: action is a choice you make, not a feeling you wait for. Progress begins the moment you stop depending on motivation and start depending on decisions. Strong reasons give you the emotional fuel to move. Small disciplines give you the structure to continue. Personal responsibility gives you control. And firm decisions give you direction. None of these require perfection. They only require commitment. Every day presents a simple option to act or to delay. Acting builds momentum, confidence, and clarity. Delay builds doubt, frustration, and regret. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not filled with luck or talent, but with consistent action taken one day at a time. When you move, even in small ways, life responds, opportunities appear, skills sharpen, and belief grows. You don't need to overhaul your entire life in one moment. You need to start. Take responsibility for today. Do the small things you know you should do. Decide once, then act daily on that decision. Over time, those actions will reshape your habits, your identity, and your results. In the end, the future belongs to those who act while others hesitate. The moment you step forward, you stop being a spectator in your own life and become the architect of it. Action is the bridge between intention and achievement. Step onto it consistently, deliberately, and without delay.